So, Matt, let me welcome you to the Video Book Club. It's very exciting to have you here. And to get started, what I'd like to do is to ask you how you got started writing. Were you always a big reader? And do you remember the first book that you loved?
Yes, always a big reader. I can't first book I loved was probably an Agatha Christie, maybe Murder on the Orient Express, something like one of I can't remember exactly which one. It was a long time ago when I started reading. But yeah, I've read the mystery genre, the huge subgenres of mystery forever. I mean, it's always been my go-to. I still read it now. I know a lot of writers can't read or don't like to read mystery when they're writing, but it doesn't bother me.
Out of you, as you said, mystery is a big genre. It has lots of different characters in it and protagonists and things like that. So your series, this is the only series that I know that you've written, and book 10 comes out in November. So we're going to be talking about book 9 because it also came out last year, but it's also coming out in paperback. But the main character is Rick Cahill. What inspired Rick for you?
Well, as I once said at a writers' conference, I'm of Irish descent, so I know about guilt, regret, and unfulfilled potential. So that's how I came up with Rick Cahill. Um, but on a not so humorous note, although there wasn't much laughter there, I wanted I always knew I wanted to write mystery my whole life, and I graduated degree in English many years ago, and I had to find a job, had to find had to pay the bills. So I thought, well, there's always gonna be a time when I can write, but I didn't realize you have to write while you have a day job. That comes later when you realize that. So I didn't really start writing until I was in my very early 40s. And um it was kind of autobiographical. It was mystery, it was a private eye, but it was kind of autobiographical. And I remember I was at a writers conference here in San Diego, actually, when a writer told me this is a reading critique, and the writer told me, you can write, which was good, but he said it's too autobiographical. So the further I got away from that, um, the more the better the story became, and kind of ironically became more the story I wanted to tell. And in the first book, Yesterday's Echo, when I was revising, this line came to me out of the ether, which became the first line of the book. The first time I saw her, she made me remember and she made me forget. And then I realized that there's character, this Rick Cahill. There's a lot I didn't know about him, which was good. And he was a lot darker than I'd been writing, and that really got me on the path I wanted to go.
So how do you, because each of the books is about different cases and things. So how do you research? How do you go about getting all the details?
Yeah, well, I have my late brother-in-law was a police officer for 33 years. Rick is an ex-cop. The early books, I got help with him regarding, Rick's a PI, but police procedural, is in his background. And there was another someone who had passed here in San Diego, a homicide detective for one of the agencies. He helped me too, Thomas Basinski. So I got what I needed there, and I have a friend named David Putnam, who's a former sheriff's deputy in San Bernardino. So I get a lot of stuff there. But in terms of each individual case, I, for me, the writing process starts with what's going on in Rick's life, his personal life, that taking a case will make more difficult. What is the major subplot that he's dealing with? And he's had quite a few. In Doom Legacy, he's got I think it's the second book where he's got CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the pro football disease, the brain disease. So that's a huge major subplot. But he's also now has a family, something he thought he'd never have after the death of his first wife. But I start with what's the subplot. I mean, I have an idea of what I want the plot, the through line to be, but I really sometimes they overlap and to make his life more difficult. But generally, it's just him taking any case will be difficult in his home life. But also because he tends to get emotionally involved in his cases, that it leads him to want to find the truth too much, to become too wedded to it, and it at times can endanger him, the people he's trying to help, and even his family at times.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was interesting. I just jumped into the series on the book before this one and this one. So unlike other people who have mentioned things where they have to start at book one, I don't
I know
have
you
to
told me that.
do that. So he now has a family and he also has CTE. And so this was an interesting combination, which in some ways is kind of scary. Because in the beginning of the book, he's I don't want to give too much away for people who are going to catch up, but he realizes he has it and he has all these rages and he has to I mean, how did you do research on that, and how are you enabling him to deal with it without medication, I guess is where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, I realized I didn't really answer your research questions, and I'll touch on that and answer this. The research, I find out what I have my target, and then I find out I'm not huge on research, but it has to be done, and you always get more. You get more information than you need, and then you find the nuggets that make it sound like your subjects know what they're talking about. Regarding CTE, I did a lot of research online. There's a guy named Doug Lyle who's a doctor who's helps a lot of mystery writers. He's a mystery writer himself, so he gave me a lot of background. And I know somebody very close to me in the writing business who's I didn't know this when I was starting the book, whose husband or ex-husband now had the thing about CTE is they don't have as of right now, they don't have a definitive diagnosis until the person dies and they look at their brain. Almost every football player they've ever looked for, I think everyone they've ever looked for, they have it. So anyway, my friend's husband or ex-husband was pre-diagnosed with CTE, and he developed these rages like Rick has, these irrational, violent rages. And I was writing about it, and I didn't even know that she had this situation, and she read it, and sadly told me I was pretty much on the nose. But that came from research. But yes, the main thing for Rick is he's trying to keep his family together, and he's trying to hide, which is kind of stupid, his these horrible new symptoms from his wife because he doesn't want to frighten her, and they got they have a child together, Krista, who's 14 months in this book, I think. But he is taking some medication. I think I touched on that in the last book. But it's not helping with the rage.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's interesting that the different layers that you've given Rick. I mean, having to deal with just, solving murders and being a PI, but then you're also adding onto that he's got CTE, which is, it's a whole different level. It's a whole different layer. It adds a lot of depth to the character. And so did it just happen in the book, how did it come to you? How did
I can
you
tell you, I can
decide to
tell
do
you
this?
exactly, I can tell you exactly how it came.
Okay.
And it's not, it's not something that when I was writing, I mentioned the first book, Yesterday's Echo, when I was writing that, I had to learn more about the character. And then somewhere along the line, I realized, well, I'm writing a series. I'm not just writing this one book. But never in my wildest dreams would I think I was going to give this fairly successful series for me, at least, a character that's a disease rather to my protagonist that's mostly fatal, and it leads to dementia. But when I first started writing, I had two rules, and I followed one and I broke the other. And one was that everything had to matter. Every emotional and physical scar had to matter. It wasn't going to be one of those books or one of those characters where he gets shot in the shoulder in the first chapter. In the third chapter, he's throwing batting practice for the Texas Rangers. The scars were there. They don't go away. If he's got a broken rib early in the book, it's going to affect him the entire book. Um, and so I realized as I was writing this series, when I got to Last Redemption, which is where the CTE comes about, which is book 8. But this guy's had a very physical life. First of all, in his backstory, he boxed as a teenager. I think 3 years. He played Pop Warner football. He played high school football, and he played a couple years of college football. He's had concussions as a PI. He was a cop. That can be a rough and tumble career. And I started to think, man, he's probably got CTE. Now, did I have to give him CTE? No, but if I was going to stick to that one rule that everything mattered, he can't escape the decisions he's made and the physicality of his life, that I decided to give him, I had to give him CTE, and it's made for good and challenging writing, but he's the average lifespan for someone with CTE, I think, is 52, and he's about 43 in the book that comes out in November. And I know my publisher wondered, why are you giving him CTE? But to be true to that one thing and to what I really believe in, trying to write as true as you can in an untrue situation, that he had to have CTE.
So, okay, so that was going to lead me to my next question is that, are you giving yourself an end to this series because he's not going to make it to 70?
Well, maybe we don't know, but maybe there'll be new technology that can help. Well, I just say this: the next book is called Odyssey's End, which is number 10. But I'm not going to say whether, I don't want any spoilers for people that may be watching that read me regarding what happens to Rick. However, I've written this character. It's first person. I've written it for 20 years. It took 10 years for me to get published. I've been in one guy's head for 20 years. He's like a brother to me, kind of a reckless brother, taller, better looking though. And I can't, now I'm writing something different right now, and it's challenging. I'm writing a third person, this guy who I've known for almost a third of my life. I'm not writing about anymore right now. I'll just say I can't imagine not writing about a Rick Cahill scenario. That's all I can say.
Well, I was wondering if you're going to introduce another a character that can go off and start their own series, or can go. Are they going to stay in the Rick world or not? Is
What I'm writing now is not the Rick world. What I'm writing now is
Okay.
not the Rick world. There are characters: Moira, his sometime partner and best friend, and kind of big sister in many ways.
Mhm.
I could definitely see a series with Moira, and I'll do a brief segue. Moira came about because I broke my second rule, whatever 20. I had two rules. One I kept, one I didn't. And I didn't want to have Rick to have a sidekick. That was the thing. I wanted to be a lone wolf. I didn't want him to have a Superman sidekick to get him out of any physical situation. I didn't want him to have some wealthy sidekick that could fly him across the world when needed. And I didn't, or get him out of maybe police situations. And I didn't want to have the humorous, the comedic sidekick. And I needed in the second book, Night Tremors, I needed a private eye. One scene, put her in, Moira, a little 5 foot, nothing, sawed off attitude, and sawed off with big attitude. And they started talking, and I realized, wow, this person needs to be in the book. And she really became the conscience of the series. And so I'm so glad I broke that rule, because honestly, I don't, with him being, he does have a dog, by the way. So even if Moira never came about, he does have a dog, Midnight, who plays a large part of the series, but to show that he can be loved. But he makes a lot of mistakes. He's he can be a little bit paranoid, and but he has this sense of having to, which goes back to his first wife's death, this sense of having to get to the truth of the matter and not letting it go. He's a bulldog. And to have this potentially dour type character without having a sidekick, someone he could talk to, someone who's very competent, and that the audience will like, readers will like. Not that they don't like Rick, but someone who more together, that she really cares for him. I realize it softens him a bit, it makes him more likable, and plus she's smarter than him. She can figure stuff out he can't. And best thing I ever did, because I don't think I would have gone. I wouldn't be here talking to you about books 9 and 10, because I don't think they would have. No one would have wanted to go past book 4 if I'd kept this really dark, insular guy. I probably would have liked it, but maybe my audience wouldn't have liked it as much as they do having Moira in his world.
So now we're going to talk about Midnight. Do you have a dog?
I've had dogs all my life. Had black labs almost all my life. About 12 years ago, got a yellow lab named Angus, and first yellow, and he was crazy. I lost him a year ago, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm not ready yet after Angus. If people that follow me on Facebook know Angus because I show him in various stages of upside down on the couch often.
Mm.
He had many followers. He didn't have his own page, but when he passed, I put a note up. I got over 700 people commenting on Angus. I never get, for my personal stuff, I never get anything like that. Angus touched a lot of people. It's funny because just seeing him upside down on the couch or doing just looking at the camera, they got a sense of who he was. So because I'm on a tangent here, but he had a lot of physical things he had to go. He had epilepsy and he had severe arthritis, and so he had. I spent a lot of money on him trying to have him happy. He had his own acupuncturist who'd come to my house, and he get physical therapy once a week. I had to drive up to Escondido, which is quite a ways from where I live. But everywhere, my vet, he'd go to the vet off. But everywhere he went, he was like George and Cheers, or George went and Cheers. Everybody loved him, and he loved being seeing people, and so he lifted people up that didn't even know him. Anyway, so yes, I do love dogs, and I love Angus still.
Oh, that's sweet. All right. Before this started, I was having a tug of war with Bonnie, who is my golden retriever, who
Ah,
doesn't like Wednesday nights because that means that she has to get locked out of the kitchen. Yeah. So I was going to say, I was wondering if a lot of, because midnight seem so real to life to people who have dogs, and that's really important. And it's not surprising that our dogs are more famous than we are.
should be.
Okay. So the next, tell us a little bit about the book that's coming out in November. Do you mind? It's available for pre-order now, everybody. Is book 10 in the Rick Cahill.
Yeah, it's Rick's had. I mentioned the CTE. It's not going to go away. He still has it. So, but it's the end of the last book was very disturbing to his wife, and she has left him with their daughter Krista, and she's gone to Santa Barbara, where she's from, and I live in San Diego. That's where I live. Rick lives in San Diego. It's 4 hour drive up north. They share custody. Um, Rick's hopeful to work things out, but they're not really progressing in that direction. And Halsey really thinks about now. He realizes that his more than likely his life's clock is moving faster than most, and he has limited time left. So he wants to be able to have a little nest egg, best he can do for Krista before he goes. And he's a private eye. That's what he does, even though he tends to get too emotionally involved um, and physically involved. That's the best he can do. And so that's upmost on his mind. And he gets a knock on the door at 7:30 in the morning, and he opens it, and it's a guy named Peter Stone, who he has a tumultuous past with, who actually tried to kill him in book one, Yesterday's Echo, and they kind of had a strange team up in a couple earlier books out of necessity for both of them, but they don't like each other. They respect each other. Peter Stone is he's not really he's not a killer in like a hitman or something like that, but he's certainly responsible for people's death. He's a former casino boss and owner, and he's bad news. And however, this is all in the first chapter. Rick wants nothing to do with him, but he wants Rick to try to find someone from their past, kind of a peripheral person from Rick's past, and he's offering Rick $50,000. And Rick, the last thing he wants to do is work for Peter Stone, but he cannot turn down $50,000 when he's trying to put a nest egg together for his daughter. So he takes the case, and things advance violently.
Yeah.
At times.
Well, thank you. And what date is that out? That's like by November 1st?
November 14th.
November 14th. So everybody should know that's pre-order. It's from Ocean View. Okay, now we're going to move into the part of this interview that sometimes scares authors, but don't be frightened. We are going to be first fiction facts. So I'm going to ask you some random questions that you have to answer off the cuff. Don't think about them too hard.
First, can I read something for Darla?
Sure.
She
Go ahead,
mentioned
read something for Darla.
she mentioned Elvis Cole
Yes,
and Robert Craze.
yes.
This is a blurb. This is a blurb I got from somebody. Following an Anthony Award-winning debut isn't easy, but Matt Coyle slammed a home run. Hard, tough, humane. Night Tremors is outstanding. Robert Craze. Anyway, I don't do that, but I had to do that for Darla. I'm a big
Oh,
Robert Craze fan. He's a friend of mine, great guy and great writer.
that was for you, Darla. All right. So the first thing is, what is your favorite genre? Oh, she said thank you. What is your favorite genre to read?
It's the genre. It's mystery. Yeah, no question.
Okay, opposite of that is, what is a genre you never want to read again?
I don't want to offend anybody. Um, I've had to write. I've had to read. I've blurbed some books. That's not fair. Let's just say memoirs. We'll just say that.
Memoirs? That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is one hobby or practice that you picked up recently?
God. Well, I'm playing golf again after not doing it for about 10, 11 years, and it's more difficult than it used to be.
What is one luxury item or unnecessary product that you can't live without?
I don't have many luxury items. Unnecessary product that I can't live without. Um, okay. Probably chocolate milk. Yeah, I said it. I don't drink, but I
Okay.
drink chocolate milk.
Okay, your chocolate milk, is that already made chocolate milk or do you make it yourself?
No, I get lactose free chocolate milk, so
So it's
it's
already
already
mixed up.
produced. Yes.
Okay. All right. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Uh, write earlier. Start writing earlier.
Okay. Is there what a character from your books, beside the main character, would you want to be friends with?
Moira, for sure.
Laura?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What is one thing that instantly can pull you out of a story, a movie, or book, or some kind of creative effort?
Um, probably can maybe be I mean, I'm probably guilty of it myself, but little bit of look at me writing and I don't know, just kind of reiterating something small that we already know, or just
Okay.
like, hey, how are you doing? Great. How was your day? Oh, good. That's, that slows everything down.
What is your favorite writing fuel besides chocolate milk?
Water. I
Water?
generally, yeah, in the morning I'll work out and then I start writing. I don't like to eat on a full stomach or anything, and so I just write until I get hungry, and then I'll eat and take a break and eat later, and then write, and then after my second session at night, then I eat. So it can make for some late meals, which probably isn't good, but I like to be I guess I like to be hungry when I'm writing, apparently.
Okay.
Very boring. It's all very boring.
All right. When you write, do you need to have silence or do you listen to music or something else?
I absolutely prefer to have silence. Sometimes that's not within um, my my capacity to have. So there is a CD I listen to when there's noise outside that's bothering me. Sometimes it doesn't bother me if it's white noise, but and it's the Lake Grover Washington. I think it's the Time Out of Mind CD, and there is some. It's mostly instrumental. He's a sax player,
Mhm.
uh, jazz, but there are a couple songs that there's vocals, but I've listened to it so many. I think I've listened at least at some period for every book that even the vocals don't bother me. I can get in the I can be tapping my foot and I can be in the groove writing.
Okay. I got to see him in Philadelphia when I was in
Oh,
college.
that's where he's from.
I
Where he was
know. He went
Yeah,
to Temple University, same place I went.
he was awesome. I saw him in San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really great. Okay, so speaking back to your childhood or younger days, what was your most memorable athletic feat?
Uh Probably I played high school football, I played baseball. Ironically, I guess the only championship I ever won in all of these was intramural softball at UC Santa Barbara, and we won some championship, and it was a team where didn't even start the season with. They asked me to play, and so I guess that's it. Is it trying to be a team guy? I was a decent athlete, made all league and second team or what have you, with honorable mention, but I guess I scored a few touchdowns, but it's probably that winning that championship.
Yeah, okay. What bad habit has followed you since college?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, probably you know, putting things off,
Procrastination.
procrastination. Yeah. Sometimes, even it's easy to do as a writer. There's nothing easier to do than not write. I'm really good at not writing. So it's easy to do, but you have to force yourself through it. So that and my love of chocolate milk, probably.
Okay. All right. One more question is, what do you own a ridiculous amount of besides books?
Oh, I own a lot of books. God, not much. I own a lot of books. I honestly don't know. I don't have a good one for that. I don't own that many things.
Okay. So you just own books and chocolate milk.
Yeah, there's a local artist who I like. I have three of her paintings. The last one I really couldn't afford, so we'll go with that. Bought it anyway.
Okay. All right. So for the future, how can readers stay in touch with you and find more out about you?
Yeah, I'm online, MattCoyleBooks.com. My Facebook, Matt Coyle, you can just look me up. Those are I'm very active on Facebook. I'm kind of on Instagram, but I don't really do much there. It's really Facebook. If you email me on my website, I will definitely respond.
Well, Matt Coyle, thank you very much for joining us for Video Book Club with Fresh Fiction. And just stick around. We're going to have a Q&A that's off camera.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.